All right, so are you ready for this? We're going to unpack this executive order, the one aimed at Perkins Coie.
Oh, yeah. This one's a doozy.
It's got it all, folks. Connections to the Steele dossier, claims of, like, weaponized investigations, and even a twist, get this, involving DEI.
Oh, yeah. Diversity, equity, and inclusion.
You better believe it.
Wow.
So we've got a ton to cover today, so let's just jump right in.
Sounds good.
Okay, so help me out here. What is the main idea? Like, what is this order really trying to do?
Well, at first glance, this order is going after lawyers at Perkins Coie.
Okay.
Tries to revoke their security clearances.
Okay, so for those of us who, don't work in government, what exactly are security clearances?
Yeah, so think of it as this like really intense vetting process, right?
Sure.
So to get a security clearance, you've got to prove you're trustworthy. You're not going to, blab about top secret stuff.
Right.
So it's background checks, financial disclosures, the whole shebang.
So it's a huge deal.
Oh, yeah.
Especially for lawyers, right?
Especially for lawyers who work on those delicate cases with the government.
Right.
They have to have them. It's like their ticket to be able to work on anything involving classified information.
Okay, so this order is going after their clearances.
Yeah, and it goes even further, like tries to restrict access to government buildings.
Oh, wow.
Aims to cancel any existing government contracts that Perkins Coie has.
Wow, so this is more than a slap on the wrist.
Oh, for sure. This is a big deal.
Okay, so let's talk about how the Steele dossier fits into all of this. I know that Perkins Coie played a part in that whole story.
Yeah, so they hired Fusion GPS.
Okay.
They're a research firm. They hired Christopher Steele, former British intelligence officer.
Okay.
He specialized in Russia.
Right.
And Steele was basically tasked with, he had to dig into any potential connections between Trump and Russia during that 2016 campaign.
Right, and that led to the dossier.
That's right.
Which had all these allegations about, Trump and his ties to Russia.
Now, when that dossier dropped, it was a bombshell. I mean, it fueled a lot of speculation and, controversy.
Right.
But in 2023, there was a report from Special Counsel John Durham.
Oh, right.
He basically concluded that a lot of what the dossier said couldn't be verified.
Oh, wow. So it was basically a dud.
Well, not completely. You see, Durham's report, it raised some serious questions about the reliability of the dossier.
Right.
But, and this is a huge but, the FBI's investigation, the one into Russian interference back in 2016, that started before they even knew about the dossier.
Wait, really?
Yeah, so the FBI was already looking into possible Russian interference before that dossier even came out.
Okay, so why is that fact so important?
Well, it really challenges the narrative that's out there, the one that the whole investigation was built on just this, shaky document.
Which is what Trump and his allies have been claiming.
Exactly.
Okay, so even without that dossier, the FBI still had reasons.
Oh, yeah. Independent reasons.
To look into Russia.
Yeah.
That changes things.
Definitely puts it in a different light. It kind of suggests that there was already, like, a basis for that whole investigation.
Right.
Separate from the dossier's claims.
So it undermines that witch hunt narrative that Trump keeps pushing.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's get into Trump's motivation here. He's called all of this, these investigations, a weaponization of the justice system, against him.
Right.
So how does this order fit into that?
Well, this order seems to be part of a pattern. You see Trump reacting against anything he sees as like a politically motivated attack or investigation.
Like he's saying it's unfair.
Exactly. Like the investigations by special counsel Jack Smith.
Right.
Remember when the Trump administration tried to fire those Justice Department prosecutors, the ones involved with those investigations?
Yeah.
They also tried to revoke those security clearances, not just from the lawyers who worked with Smith, but also former intelligence officials, the ones who, spoke out about possible Russian disinformation campaigns.
Wow. So is this him just like going after anyone he sees as a threat?
It kind of seems that way. This order might be like, a continuation of those efforts.
Okay.
But now a new target.
Who's the new target?
Perkins Coie.
Okay. And why them?
Well, he sees them as connected to, what he believes is like this deep state conspiracy against him.
Okay, so this is where things get really interesting, I think. There's another part of this order that seems totally random.
Oh, you're talking about the DEI part?
Yes. The DEI, I thought we were talking about, Russia. The dossier.
Huh?
How did DEI get pulled into all of this?
Well, it actually connects back to Attorney General Pam Bondi. Remember her recent directive that basically targets what what the administration sees as unlawful DEI initiatives.
Right.
So like in the private sector, educational institutions, the ones getting federal money.
So they're saying Perkins Coie is violating these guidelines.
That's what it seems like. But it's all still pretty vague, the specifics. So we'll have to see how this plays out, in court. Like, what evidence do they actually have to back this up?
Okay, so DEI, that's a huge topic right now.
Yeah.
People have a lot of different opinions about it.
Oh, absolutely. It's like a powder keg, right?
Yeah.
You've got folks who say these initiatives are essential, to make things fair and just.
Right.
And then you've got the folks who say, no, it's actually discriminatory, that it's divisive.
Right.
So this order is just like pouring gasoline on that fire.
So are they making an example out of Perkins Coie? Like, if you're for DEI, we're coming after you.
It's a possibility. It definitely sends a message, right? To any other organization that's, implemented these programs. Or maybe they're thinking about it.
Yeah.
They might be wondering, are we next?
So what could happen to Perkins Coie if all of this, if these accusations, if they stick?
Well, in the short term, they could lose those government contracts. Maybe their reputation takes a hit.
Right.
But the long-term stuff, that could be even bigger.
In what way?
Well, this case, it could set a precedent, right? So it might be harder for organizations to implement DEI programs. Like, they might be worried about lawsuits or something.
Okay, so this is bigger than just Perkins Coie.
Oh, yeah. This whole executive order, it might not just be about, punishing them for something that happened back in 2016.
Right.
This could be about, silencing people, sending a message like, don't mess with us.
Wow. Okay, so we've got a lot to think about here. This executive order, it's about the Russia investigation. It's about how much power the president really has. It's about free speech. And now it's about DEI, too.
It really is. It's like this perfect example of how divided we are.
So what are we going to talk about in the next part of this deep dive?
So next, we're going to really look into those potential legal challenges, like what arguments, both sides might make. And then we'll go deeper into the FBI thing,
Yeah.
that the investigation started on its own, separate from the dossier. What does that mean for all of this?
Sounds good.
Stay tuned.
So we've said that this executive order is a really big deal, like it could really impact Perkins Coie. Maybe it even changes how people see those DEI initiatives. But before we get into that, can we go back to what you were saying about the FBI investigation?
Oh, you mean how it wasn't actually based on the Steele dossier?
Yeah. You said that, like, it challenges the whole idea that the investigation was this big witch hunt, just based on this, like, flimsy document.
Right.
But I'm still a little lost on the details. Like, what was the FBI even looking into before that dossier showed up?
So it all started with a tip.
A tip from who?
From someone on the Trump campaign, one of his aides.
Okay.
And they said they knew about, Russian dirt on Hillary Clinton.
Oh, wow.
So that got the FBI's attention, right?
Yeah.
And that's what made them open an investigation.
So even if that dossier never existed, the FBI would still have been looking into Russia because of this tip.
That's exactly it. The dossier definitely added to things, when it came out.
Right.
But it wasn't the reason they started looking.
That's really important for people to understand because it's like the opposite of what Trump and his people have been saying, for years.
Right.
Like, they've always said the investigation was just about the dossier.
Yeah, they tried to make it seem like it was all just this politically motivated attack from the deep state.
Okay, speaking of deep state, can we, break that down? I hear it everywhere, but what does it actually mean?
It's like this shadowy group,
Okay.
Unelected officials, bureaucrats pulling the strings behind the scenes.
Like a secret society.
Kinda, yeah. Like they're working against what the elected officials want.
Okay, I get it.
It's a big idea for people who, really distrust the government.
So when Trump talks about the deep state, trying to take him down, he's saying there's this secret group working against him.
Exactly. He thinks they're like this hidden establishment, and they're trying to stop him from doing what he wants.
Wow. Okay, so back to the FBI investigation.
Yeah.
You said that the dossier, even though it wasn't the reason they started investigating, it still added to things when it came out.
Right.
Why was it such a big deal?
Timing, for one thing.
Okay.
It came out just as the FBI was starting their investigation.
So it just became part of the story.
Exactly. Plus, the claims in it were pretty explosive.
Like they suggested that Trump's campaign was working with Russia.
Yeah, like really deep, concerning stuff.
And of course, Trump was not happy about it.
Oh, he hated it. Called it fake news, a witch hunt, the whole 9 yards.
Right. He thought they were trying to make him look bad from the beginning.
Absolutely. It fed into his whole idea that people were just out to get him.
But we've said that the FBI was already on the case, right? So why even look at the dossier at all? Were they already doing the right thing?
Well, it's tricky. The dossier was already out there, you know.
Like people were talking about it?
Journalists, intelligence officials, everyone. So if the FBI just ignored it, it could have looked like they were hiding something.
Especially if any of it turned out to be true.
Exactly.
So they were in a tough spot.
Yeah, kind of a lose-lose situation. If they investigated the dossier, Trump would say they were trying to get him. But if they ignored it, people would say they weren't doing their job.
Wow. No matter what they did, someone would be mad.
So even though that Durham report didn't find like a deep state conspiracy against Trump, it did say the FBI messed up a bit, right?
Yeah, he wasn't happy with how they handled some things.
Okay.
Especially, how much they relied on that dossier. He said they should have been more careful, like fact-checked it more before using it for, surveillance warrants and stuff.
So even though there wasn't some big plot to take down Trump, the FBI still made some mistakes. That's the important part. They're not perfect, They make mistakes like everyone else.
Right.
But making a mistake doesn't mean they were doing something evil.
Okay, before we move on, can we talk about that opposition research stuff?
Sure.
How Perkins Coie was hired by the Democrats to do opposition research on Trump?
Uh-huh.
Can you explain what that is?
Yeah.
Is it even legal? It sounds kind of shady to me.
It does have a bit of a bad reputation, yeah.
Right.
But it happens all the time in politics, and it can be totally legal.
So what is it?
It's basically digging up information on your opponent.
Like dirt.
It can be, yeah. Like their past, their record, anything that can be used to, make them look bad.
So it's just political mudslinging.
Sometimes, yeah. But sometimes it's just about, finding out what your opponent is good at, what they're bad at.
Okay.
So you can run a better campaign.
But in this case, they hired a former spy, to look into Trump and Russia. That seems a little extreme, doesn't it?
It's definitely unusual. Raises some questions, yeah. But it's not automatically illegal. The important thing is, did they break any laws while they were doing it?
And that's what Durham was trying to figure out.
Right.
So what did he say?
He said that even though the FBI messed up some things, he didn't find any proof that they, made up evidence or tried to frame Trump.
Okay. So let's bring it back to this executive order. Perkins Coie is going to fight it in court, right?
Uh-huh.
What are their chances? What are their arguments?
They could say that the order is, revenge and that it's against their free speech rights.
Okay.
They could also say that the president is, overstepping his boundaries.
Okay.
And that the order isn't fair to them.
So it's like a fight over how much power the president has.
Right. And whether people and organizations can, fight back against what the president does.
This could be huge then.
Oh, yeah. It could change how presidents use these kinds of orders in the future.
Okay, wow. We've covered so much. The FBI, opposition research, the deep state, everything. But we still haven't really talked about the DEI part of the order.
Right.
What's next? What are we going to dive into?
In the last part, we're going to look at that DEI stuff more closely.
Okay.
We'll see what Bondi's directive really means for Perkins Coie and other organizations.
Okay.
And then what it all means for this big national debate about diversity and inclusion.
Sounds good. All right, so we've really gone deep on this whole thing, haven't we? The Steele dossier, the FBI investigation, what opposition research is, even that whole deep state idea.
We've covered a lot of ground, that's for sure.
But there's this one piece, and it's a big one, that we haven't really dug into yet.
You mean the diversity, equity, and inclusion angle?
Yeah, the DEI stuff. It feels like it came out of nowhere.
It definitely adds a whole other layer to this story. Makes you think, is this just about, payback for 2016, or there's something more going on here?
Right. So, okay, let's unpack this. The executive order, it says Perkins Coie has these, quote-unquote, unlawful DEI practices. What does that even mean?
Well, it ties back to what Attorney General Bondi said, remember? Her directive targets what the administration sees as, like, these DEI initiatives that are actually discriminatory.
Okay.
They're really focused on programs that seem to favor certain groups, like hiring practices that care more about diversity than, who's actually the best for the job, or training programs that focus on stuff like white privilege or systemic racism.
So is this executive order saying that Perkins Coie is doing those things? Like they're discriminating against certain groups in the name of diversity?
That's what they're implying, yeah. But it's all still pretty vague. We'll have to see how this plays out in court. What evidence do they have? We don't really know yet.
And this is where it gets really complicated, right? Because DEI is such a huge topic these days.
Oh, yeah. It's incredibly divisive. Some people think these DEI initiatives are absolutely essential for creating a fair and equitable society.
Right, I've heard that.
And then you've got people saying, no, this is reverse discrimination. This is just dividing us further. This order throws fuel on that fire.
So it seems like Perkins Coie is being made an example of, like, if you're pro-DEI, watch out.
It's definitely a possibility. And that sends a scary message to other organizations out there, the ones that have these DEI programs or are thinking about starting them.
Right.
Like, are we next? That's what they're probably thinking.
So let's say these accusations against Perkins Coie, they stick. What happens to them?
Well, the short term, they could lose government contracts. Their reputation could take a hit.
That makes sense.
But the bigger picture, the long-term stuff, that could be even more significant.
How so?
This case, it could set a precedent that makes it harder for any organization to implement DEI programs. Like, they'll be worried about getting sued or something.
Wow, so this executive order, it's more than just about Perkins Coie and what they might have done.
Yeah, this isn't just about punishing them for their role in the Steele dossier. It feels like they're being used as a tool in this much bigger fight, a fight about culture, about politics.
Right, so it's not just about the past, about the Russia investigation. It's also about, like, controlling the present.
Exactly. It's about sending a message. If you don't agree with us, we're coming for you.
It all comes back to that question of motivation, doesn't it? Like, what's the real reason for this executive order? Is it accountability, or is it about silencing people who disagree?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And it's a question we all need to keep asking. We need to look at the evidence, follow the legal challenges, and think about what this all means for the future.
Because what happens with Perkins Coie today could have huge implications for other organizations, for free speech, for the very fabric of our society.
Absolutely. And that's why it's so crucial to stay informed, to stay engaged, keep asking questions, keep digging for answers, and most importantly, keep having these conversations.
This has been such an eye-opening deep dive. I can't believe how much we've uncovered just from looking at this one executive order. It's amazing.
It just shows the power of, really thinking critically, looking beyond the surface, understanding how complex these issues really are.
And that's what we're all about here at the Deep Dive. We're not giving you easy answers. We're giving you the information you need to think for yourselves.
So to everyone listening, we encourage you, keep digging, keep questioning, and keep those critical thinking skills sharp. What stood out to you about this case? What does it mean for our future? Let us know what you think.
Until next time, stay curious.